Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of 6 Degrees of Associations. We are excited to be welcoming one more person here from the Murray Company, but with some really exciting news, a new title, Executive Vice President Elizabeth Johnson. Welcome.
Hi, thanks, Erin. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Lucas, good to see you again.
Thank you, Erin. Good to be here.
Yeah, we're excited because we have a list of people that have been recommended to us by our past guests. And so we are coming for you guys. We have a bunch of emails out and coordinating times, but we wanted to make sure that we also thought about people that we know that we'd like to make sure we're putting out there in front of our audience. And Elizabeth, Lucas has spoken so highly of you and said, you know what, she'd be fantastic to come on. And so this is one of Lucas's suggestions, and we're so excited to see you and get to know a little bit more about you and a little bit more about the work that you've done at the Murray Company. And just as a reminder, everyone, Core Affinity did purchase the Murray Company, but that doesn't mean that we don't still have lots to learn about them and all of their successes. So Elizabeth, maybe you could start out with just giving everyone a little bit of a history of your role at the Murray Company and perhaps what this next new phase for you looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started with the Murray Company a few months after it was founded in 2010. It was founded by JP Murray, who was an association exec, and worked through his way through American Trucking and the Chamber and some other areas. And basically what he brought me on to do, I've been doing for the last 10, 11 years, which is membership, sponsorship, advertising, exhibit sales on behalf of associations. And with that, I've just gained a lot of experience and kind of knowing what sells, what doesn't, what works, what doesn't. And I'm now utilizing that in two different ways. With my new role, I will be overseeing the sales team here at the Murray Company, which is about 3-4 people, 5 to 6 pretty soon. We're expanding very quickly. And I'll be overseeing them and just kind of providing guidance and oversight with the experience that I've gained over the years and working with their clients as well. And then I am also providing consulting work. So we do a couple kind of deep dives into associations that ask us to and review their membership dues analysis or provide sponsorship analysis from a qualitative and quantitative standpoint. And I'm able, again, to use that, years of experience with working of probably 80 to 90 associations at this point of what's worked and applying that to, these different consulting projects that we can do. So that's what that's what I'll be doing moving forward.
Well, I'm excited for you, and I'm so excited for the growth period for Core Affinity, the Murray Company, and so forth. It's been a really fun journey to watch you guys. One of the things that we were talking about before we came on screen here, and it's a topic that we addressed when we first started this podcast, but admittedly we've kind of dropped off just because it became, we were either addressing it too often or honestly people just sort of adjusted to the quote unquote new normal of the time. But you mentioned sponsorships, and specifically, I'd love to dive in a little bit on event sponsorships and live event, virtual events. I mean, we're now coming into year 3 of this whole experiment we call COVID, and people are starting to, potentially get back. And I'm just wondering what you're seeing out there as you're talking to not only organizations that are trying to decide what to do around events, but also the key sponsors and how they viewed the past 2 years and maybe what they're really looking forward to doing in the next year or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I wish we were so optimistic about like virtual events or like, this is great. There's all these things we can offer. We actually have metrics we can offer now. And I think some of those associations have done it and some haven't, but in most cases, I've not heard anybody that's, if we're offering them 2 options of virtual or in person, everyone is saying they want to do in person. It's just the way that it's going. I think virtual worked for what it did. It was a substitute, but you always prefer the real thing. And so I've just, we're seeing that, a lot of excitement about doing things in person again. I do think there's value in the hybrid model. I was just at a conference last week and the sponsors were there. They were thrilled. They were so happy. From an attendance perspective, it worked out really well because there are people that, fact of the matter is people are still getting sick. They still do have to quarantine. And we had that happen and there was a virtual option. So rather than missing completely, the attendees could still attend virtually, or we had some customers, some prospective members that were supposed to come and something happened at the plant, they're short-staffed, whatever, they had to stay, they could still hop on. So from an attendee perspective, I think the hybrid virtual is helpful and great. But from a sponsor perspective, I just haven't seen a, Oh, great. We're doing virtual again. Like it's all in person now. That's what they want.
I think there were elements, right? I'm so glad that we've come full circle to the topic, because one of the reasons I was just getting sort of like event fatigue talking about it week after week, and we went off topic a little bit from that and had a bunch of great shows, and we've come back to it because it does feel like optimistically we're over the hump, like we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And we sort of said, well, during this virtual period, there's all these metrics that we can track online. It makes it easier. And maybe we were telling ourselves that because we really wanted to believe it. Maybe some of it was true. But what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, I think what Elizabeth is saying is there is sort of a want or a need in some cases to get back in person and make those personal connections. We always say this industry is very relationship based. And that not only proves true for the association members with their association, but it's proven true for suppliers and vendors to the industry who want to connect with the members and the industry as well. So, and we've started talking about creative ways to talk about sponsorship packages, some of which we're going through with some of our clients right now. And I'd be curious, Elizabeth, if you're hearing about any of those, like, what's happening with Prospectus and where are we going with that next?
Yeah, I would say, I'm trying to think of what any sort of development that we've had. I would say the big trend I'm seeing with the prospectus build out is like a more holistic view. So we've been talking a lot about like full year partnership ideas. So you can rely on those virtual options, maybe not necessarily a virtual event, but the marketing emails, the newsletters, the website, and having that digital presence until there is an in-person conference. So more of like a 365-day involvement type of thing. That's been really top of mind the last, few months. A lot of talk about these partnerships that people want to do, and it creates a better relationship with the vendor members or vendor attendees, because they're looked at as a service, a solution provider versus just a vendor, right? And that they come in with solutions, and as they're working on a deeper level, they can offer these new solutions to the industry through these partnerships.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the year-round engagement piece is something I think suppliers have probably always strived for, either because instead of the 2-3 day flash in the pan, hope you get it in and made some contacts, like keeping engaged and going forward. Were there things that you think you could point to within the virtual realm where you promoted the hybrid, which I would agree with as well? Like what can we pick and choose from the hybrid to sort of keep and take with us as we again sort of tried to weave into more of the live events?
I'd love to see more with metrics. I haven't seen it utilized perfectly yet. I know it's out there because I've been to different conferences and talked to different people. But I know that there's things like more returns that we can give to sponsors through virtual and digital engagement. And I'd love to see that continue or start up even more so. Maybe now that people know about it, sponsors will ask for it more. We have these apps for meetings and everything like that, but I've yet to see somebody say, all right, ABC company, here's all the, you had this many clicks on your ad on the app, or, this many people went to your website through the app or anything like that. And I think that would be a really great benefit to offer moving forward.
Yeah, the calculatable ROI, having come from the virtual, and not that we spoiled suppliers with those options with digital metrics, but it seems like it's also become more part of the conversation. So they're coming to the table with, okay, well, if you're going to put my name in lights, or you're going to put my name down the middle of the exhibit hall or what have you, are there other ways that we can calculate return like we did with the digital pieces? But that's proven to be a difficult challenge. And I'd love to hear ideas for that too. So maybe somebody will hear us out there and like return the call and say, hey, I've got a great idea, and we'll bring them onto the show. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it sounds interesting in the sense that, I've frequently been on the side of the table where I'm evaluating sponsorships. I'm evaluating, what's the exposure. And it's funny, I was just on a phone call earlier today with a client and talking through, oh, well, if it's a sponsored session, people will just tune out. And I'm just curious, when you're working with the organizations to help develop some of these sponsorship packagings, how are you addressing maybe some of the skepticism that might come from sponsors, or because they're having to, they knew what to expect from live events, then they had to go into virtual events and be told of these new metrics and try to figure out, oh, how much of that is real and what's not, and then hybrid world, like what kind of things are you thinking through when you're really trying to justify that to the sponsor of how do we get them to reframe the metrics that they're looking at, not just even seeing metrics, but how to reframe what they are even gauging the experience on?
I haven't had too many questions from that aspect, really about from the hybrid standpoint. Honestly, if there's just any touch of anything in person, they're just really excited. Now I do know that
Me too.
yeah.
Me three. Yeah. I feel like we're
I know
all in
you
that.
bring up a part about speaking sessions and everything like that. I think that's a great point, and that is of interest. That was interest pre-COVID and post still, is that idea of the thought leadership and sharing materials and information. I think there's great ways to do it. I work with associations that have been very thoughtful in how they have their sponsors speak. And never really, with the associations I was with, never really received negative feedback from people. I think it's just about having a good vetting process and, teeing it up well, and then just having a really good panel too. And oftentimes if you have a panel with a member on it, that's great also.
Right.
Lately the folks I've been speaking with are kind of pulling away from that, and they're saying, oh no, like we don't put our sponsors on the speaking, or if they do, it's separate. And I would say to not be afraid of it.
Right.
And if you have the right guardrails up and, can kind of vet it well and prep it well, you could still have a speaker do it. And there's other ways to do it too. Like, especially if you have credits, I've seen this happen too. Like if you have a conference where you're offering educational credits for your members, then those don't have to be those. But then you have other sessions outside of it that are still really great sessions that people want to hear when maybe something else is going on, or they don't want to attend that session, so they can attend this session. So there's really creative ways that you can offer that type of thought leadership sponsorship as well.
Yeah. I would also suggest or recommend for associations who are getting ready to go this route, back in person, is there's an opportunity to sort of capture what was lost, right? So we had a client recently who wanted to put together a sponsorship package for one specific portion of their event. And won't go into the names because I didn't get approval ahead of time. We're just talking here. And they give away awards, and they said there's 3 sponsorships associated with this particular breakfast event. And we said, well, you missed 2 years. Why not make it 3 for each year and do 9 sponsors for this event, right? People want to get back to it. And we were able to triple basically the inventory for this one aspect of the event just by saying, why not? And I believe it'll sell out and it'll do great. And everybody wins, right? So let's find ways also to not just forget what was lost. Like maybe we can actually retain some of that back.
Right.
And even if it's not backtracking, it's even like just adding more inventory.
Right.
Like there's no dings if you don't sell something, right? Like if you sell out and you say you sold out, that's great and all, but like if you add in more inventory and you sell more, then that's even better.
Right.
So don't be afraid to put extra stuff on the table, even if it doesn't get eaten.
Right.
Well said.
I do like that way of looking at it, because it's like a zero-sum game versus, hey, there's more for everybody. And I would imagine most of your attendees are always looking for more choice, more variety in what they're seeing and learning and getting to touch and feel when they're at events. So yeah, I mean, why make it a small world when it can be a wider world and everyone else benefits? It's a win-win situation. I'm curious, when you said that most of the sponsors and even the organizations are really looking to get back in person, we've been talking a lot about metrics and, how does the sponsorship show ROI? Has there been any of like just the plain old human element that you've heard from people of like, it's not about whether we got better ROI and we could measure it better when it was virtual. We just want to get back to pressing the flesh and seeing people and saying hi in person. I mean, is there a sentiment that you're feeling that people are just kind of at that point where we're there?
I mean, I'd say it's a mix of kind of that and the metrics, which is really like, a lot of the things I've heard the last couple of weeks have been my salespeople just really need to meet with people.
Yeah.
That like these virtual things are not turning over leads for my sales team.
Right.
And that's what it turns into. And so sometimes it's measured by, oh, well, our team captured, 57 leads today with the lead reader. But I think it can be as simple as, my sales guy got 2 or 3 good
Sure.
contracts out of the meeting, right?
Yeah,
Like they
quality
started
over
at the
quantity.
meeting, but then 6 months later, they've got contracts that, pay for that exhibit booth, that sponsorship 10 times over.
Yeah. And the one piece in my mind that sort of tends to like weave those two together is my network, my friends who are speakers at these events, right? They get in there. It is all about creating a feeling, right? So you never forget how somebody made you feel. It's so difficult as a speaker to portray and emulate the same feeling to your audience when you're in a digital setting than when you're on stage and you can move about and use sound and functions, and like there is just an eminence in the room with others, like when you're speaking. And so ultimately, yeah, that audience, which is a form of a sponsorship, right, is not getting the same return that they would in a digital sense. I mean, I know that is all around, but I know those people as somebody who just loved, those people who want to get on stage. That, I mean, what a hole, like sort of a hole in your life, right? Like get me back on the stage type of thing. Like, let's go.
Well, and I would agree that like what I think we really figured out in this era, and we should all be really proud of ourselves for, is how to present content virtually. I don't think that there's been any lack of that, and innovation's been great to see how people have created that. I think what we probably haven't done is been able to really teach people how to connect as humans when you are virtual, right? So I love the fact that I can watch a session, and you know what, if I get pulled away in the middle of it, I know that they'll send me a link and I can watch it again. Or if there's a point I want to go back to and I really want to make some notes, or I want to see a slide that I didn't get to take a picture of or download or something, So I think from that perspective, everyone really jumped up and sped up their game in that way that made it really compelling for people who are looking, for learning opportunities or to really, dig deep into a topic or subject area. But Elizabeth, what I'm hearing from you, and I would agree, and you too, Lucas, and we've talked about it, how much you want. I know how much you're a people person too, is like that ability to just get in a room with someone and create quality over quantity. 3 people that are going to turn into contracts versus 35 people that I'm going to chase with email campaigns and I might never hear from again. It's a difference, it's a different way of looking at it. So I think it's great if you can see it from both sides, because different people have different metrics they want to measure success on. And it's important for you guys to have that variety of opportunities for people. So I love that.
Yeah. And you can't measure the relationship with anything really quantifiable because it goes on, right? Those people that you make connections with at those shows that I've had for a long time, right? So measuring their return in a short period of time just doesn't happen. It's the long haul, which you don't get out of the digital as often.
Well, I am excited to see, Elizabeth, where you take the Murray Company. And again, congratulations on the new role. And I'm so just happy to see what Core Affinity is doing. But to be respectful of your time, we're going to let you go. But we can't let you go until you give us a suggestion of someone else that you think we might be able to talk to that our audience would like to hear from.
Yeah, well, top of mind, because I just had my in-person conference last week, is Dan Schubert. He's the Chief Revenue Officer over at National Association of Wholesaler Distributors. And he's came from the wholesaler distributor world, and he's kind of new to the association space. So I think he could offer a really interesting and unique insight to the conversation.
Killer. Okay, good.
That's great.
I'm excited. All right, Paul, here we go. So Elizabeth, I know that we put you on the spot today and you shined, you did great. We were so glad to talk to you, and I can't wait to get our next session on the books. Lucas, good to see you again. And thank you everybody for tuning in today.
Thank you, Erin. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.